Okay, so here we are, greater than good. And, my job as a storyteller, I love telling those stories. And I was telling Matt and Ben a couple of days ago that, shame on me for not calling them first, right? I mean, these guys have been so creative and so passionate about what they've been doing with a project of theirs called Spiral Mind that has really spiraled not out of control in a bad way, just in a great way, right? I mean, it started with an idea and I've been dying to share their story. So I want to introduce Ben Perez and Matthew Rothblatt, two longtime friends of mine. We go way back. And guys, welcome to this little project of mine.
Hello, Phil. How are you?
How's it going, Phil? Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. So, for those of that, for people watching and meeting you guys for the first time, Spiral Mind is a comic book, and it's just something that a lot of people kind of dream about doing. They think about comics. We grew up reading them. They inspired us. And lo and behold, look at Hollywood now, right? They're raking in the billions off of, something that a guy named Stan Lee created. And everything's just kind of downhill from there. So as every superhero, as every hero has an origin story, then let's talk about the origin story of this project. When was it? Just take me to that point where you guys just decided, you know what? Let's do this.
Yes, let's see. I guess
Oh,
I'll
no,
start.
this is a two-part story here. Benito's going to start that one because
Go for it.
he's the one who got the ball rolling. I was on the receiving end of a phone call, so I'll let Benito tell you about his test that he took at UTEP that caused this to happen. Go
I
ahead,
just got
Benito.
out of an exam. I remember I finished the exam. I got my results back, and it was a 12. 12. That's depressing me. What can I do to make me
Out of
happy?
100?
Yes, I was depressed. So
You
I
wait.
go there.
Hang on a second. Hang on a second.
Yeah,
Where were you at? Were you at UTEP or were
UTEP.
you at?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're at the University of Texas El Paso,
Yes.
majoring in engineering, and
Yes.
and and you just took an exam and you got the results back, and it's a 12.
The 12. I was depressed. I said,
Yeah.
"Oh my God, what am I gonna do?" I went to the comic book store to cheer up because that's what I do. I go get comic books, Batman, usually Batman or Superman, and it cheers me up. And I was in line to buy my comic books, and there's a little boy in front of me, and he was talking to Brad. You know Brad from All Star Comics, good guy.
Yeah,
The little boy asked Brad what he has to do. What does he have to do to make a comic book? And Brad gave him some crazy answer, and I said, "Hey, I got an idea for a comic book." So I was driving home with my comic books, happy again. I said, "Who can I call to go with me on this journey?" Right? Because it's all about this going on this journey, huh? I go on the journey. So I could call my brother. He won't care. I call Conrad, my buddy Conrad. He'll say, "Let's go get drunk." I say, "All right."
let's talk
Who else?
about this over a couple of beers, right?
I said, "Who else can I call?" Well, that's Matt. I'll call Matt. I called Matt, and he was making soup, so he can take the story from there.
Yeah. So on my side, my son Max, who's now 20, um, he was a kid baby in the crib, and my wife worked. I was coming off unemployment, a 13-month unemployment. It was post 9/11. Um, I was on unemployment for like 13 months, and I just started working at White Sands Missile Range, like starting over, square one,
Hmm.
like walking in. And I think it was my day off. It was a Friday. We had every other Friday off, and I was taking care of my son. My wife was working, and I had a routine. My routine was depressing too. It was more depressing than Benito's test. Trust me, it was a dating story, a wedding story, and a baby story, all back to back around noon on TLC or whatever. So I was making my son was taking a nap. I was making some soup, grilled cheese sandwich and some Campbell's soup, my regular depressing by myself lunch. And I get a call from Benito, and I was about to not answer it, because I was like, oh man, he's just gonna want to go talk about going to drinking or something, which is fine. But I had my
Which is
stories to
fine.
watch.
Yeah, the
So
baby's asleep, so I can go
yeah,
drink.
yeah, no, no, yeah, no, but for late, like, I'd have to figure out an excuse to go out. I got excited, and then he said, I'm gonna write something or and send it to you. So, fast forward a little bit, he sent me a narrative, which essentially turned out to be detailed in this book,
Hmm.
Rabbi's Lament.
Yeah, that book.
Um, and I tried to talk him out of doing a comic book. I was like, let me just write a book, man. You got it all here. The chapter's already there. You got the rabbi. The air is so cold it hurts to breathe. He had the words there. They were all there. And I was like, I can't draw. You can't draw. Um,
I can't draw.
and just and yeah, and
You
I
can
mean, I
draw the
drew the
dreads.
logo. That was it. But
Hey, show him
yeah,
the
So,
dreads.
yeah,
so
he
let's
drawed it on
let's
the
just
book.
time out there. Okay, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you're a 12. Okay, so your schooling is really like, I mean, there's bad and there's shitty, and
That was
then there's
depressing, Phil.
and then there was you.
That
Okay,
was come to a God moment. What do I do with my life?
right, and then on this side
You know what?
of the
The
fence,
truth is, I didn't even study. It's just because my whole career, I never studied. Stuff just came easy. But then, you get to college, you got to start studying. You got to start
things,
reading.
yeah,
And
things
I
are a little
did.
bit different, and
It came
then
easy.
with Matt,
I
you're
finished
at White
though. I did
Sands,
finish. I did finish.
you're making
Yeah.
soup and
I'm making
timing
soup.
soup to shower. I mean, that's how depressing that shit was.
Yeah,
So you guys are pretty much like at the bottom of bottom at this
You're
point.
making me depressed again.
No, but see, but isn't it funny? Isn't it
Uh,
funny though? Okay, where you take every superhero, or forget superheroes for a second, just everybody who does something that's really worthwhile. Don't we kind of have to hit bottom first to appreciate the good things that start to happen in a positive way when we start getting into another direction? And I've talked about it before on this channel. So um, my buddy Austin, who just wrote a movie and has entered that movie into different festivals, and it's
that's
gaining a
awesome.
lot of traction. It's getting some awards.
That's
It's getting
awesome.
some good recognition, and he's from El Paso. But we talked about how the creative process is tricky because sometimes it's like when we're at our low points, that's when our ideas start to come in. We have to fill that void of how we're like feeling, and then that's where like things start to flow. It's not a coincidence that both
Coincidental.
of you guys were down here when
Coincidences.
Benito, when you made that phone call, then
Yes.
you were down and you caught him at a point where he was on the down, but you guys have together been able to kind of rise up. And that isn't that what a superhero story is all about?
Spider-Man has evolved. I think he was looking at some old images of Spider-Man yesterday, and the character, the way he looks, the storyline has evolved over these years from when we first came up with the idea. But Spider-Man is my answer to fighting a monster. So I mean, you remember those Universal films? Dracula,
Yeah.
Frankenstein. Remember they were black and white. So on Saturday mornings they would have the Superman show. Remember, and he was in black and white. So I
Yeah.
could not understand why Superman, who was in black and white, could not just fly into those movies, which were black and white, and just take care of business. I
Right.
didn't know. So I said, I'm going to create this. There you go. I'm going to create this character who can do just that. That's what Spider-Man is.
From an origin standpoint, you guys are looking at like one of the first ideas you had was that rabbi performing an exorcism. And
Yeah, 'cause it
so
had never
now,
been done before.
and yeah, so like as an upbringing though, from
Yeah.
where you guys were, I mean, every story has that origin, it has that backstory, and we always kind of rely on our past, our history. And
Right.
so you have a lot of history together, obviously. So with that said, how has that been just so important for you to produce something like Spiral Mind, like this comic book and what it is today? How have you guys had to really, really rely on that relationship that you guys have? Because I can only imagine, as we go through our ups and downs in this world. I mean, if you guys are up on that trapeze working together and relying and trusting on each other, that relationship has got to be like a safety net, right?
Uh, when we got into this, there were times, early on when we were starting to get things rolling, where I wanted to give up and he was still motivated, or he wanted to give up and I was still motivated. So that we knew each other well enough to know we weren't blowing smoke, and we were just,
Yeah.
we did truly believe in, and that's what helped keep it going. I mean, we've been at it for 20 years, even though the first issue didn't come out until the first, the first real issue didn't come out till, 2008. We
So
did
tell him,
do that,
tell
primer.
him why it took so long for us to go from 2003 inception to 2009, the first
We
book.
had to wait for we had to wait for technology to
Jeez.
catch up, because we didn't, not knowing any artists, and there were we're engineers, so we've approached this as engineers.
We read books like this. No lie,
Yeah,
we actually read these books because people would tell us, "Oh, just read
history.
this book."
Yeah.
Yep, books
We read
about the
this book.
Stan Lee, like you're talking about, Men of Tomorrow. That's about the co-creator of
We read
Superman.
this book.
Where's that one?
You guys are hitting on something that's really, really important, because as somebody who goes to a lot of schools and talks to a lot of students, okay, the number one question I always get asked, and I'm fairly certain it's the number one question you guys get asked, and it actually goes back, Ben, to when you got that grade and went to the comic book store and you heard that little kid ask that same question. How do you become an author? How do you make a comic? How do you get your start? Everybody wants to know, how do we get our start, right? You guys got your start in a very similar way in which I got mine. I was a reader. Like, I loved reading, and
Yeah,
to the point to where I just wanted to start telling my own stories because I loved the
that's
experience
the
of
story still.
actually reading the book. You know what I mean? So you guys are starting the same way, where you guys, felt like you needed to get that background and just really read and understand so that you can do it. But there is a crossroads that you are faced with when you say, okay, I've read it, I'm inspired, now it's time to actually start executing it. And so who writes the stories? Like, who writes the stories? What's the process look like when you get a draft, and maybe it's you, Ben, and you share it with Matt? What happens next after that? What do you guys do? How do you refine it?
So first, what we do is we come with an idea. What is Spider Mind going to do this time? Let's see.
Yep.
What should we do this time, Matt? Oh, let's have Spider Mind fight crazy killer clowns, right? Psychotics. So they say, okay, good idea. So Matt will say, hey, we'll add this to it. It's like, oh, okay, let's add that to it. Well, let's do this. So then we go down. I sit and I write, and I get my computer and I write the script. Page one, panel one. I want this image. Page one, panel two. I want to carry that image to the next image, and so on and so forth. Once we get to that image, I send it back to Matt. Matt edits it. And he says, hey, let's add this, or let's take this away, or this will enhance it. We collaborate there. And once we both agree upon that story, we send it to the artist that we choose. We have quite a few now. Before we had nobody. Nobody wanted to help us, or they wanted to charge us. What was it? $400 a page? Get out of
Yeah,
here!
it was
Yeah,
pricey
But
for
now
yeah,
we have,
early 2000.
yeah, and
yeah.
now we have guys like, oh, just look at this, look at this art. This is Jeff. He's working on a book right now called Chevy Chef Clowns. Jeff is just brilliant. You should see some of the images. I don't know if Matt sent you the images of the issue
Yes.
one panel.
Yeah, no, he sent me some
Yeah,
images. I mean, I've seen a lot of the stuff, and it's super impressive. But like, when
Yeah,
you guys go back and forth during that process, so Ben, you're the writer, but Matt, you're the development editor, right? I mean, you help
yeah,
develop.
yeah.
And when you guys go back and forth, that's a process that, I mean, I just went through that with my latest project that's out next year. That can get very tedious. So is there ever a point in time where you guys just really butt heads, and Ben, you're like, no, Matt, you know what? I want that. I want to stick with that, or vice versa.
yeah,
We tell our side of the story, or our justifications, and sometimes it's something that's if it's something that Ben really wants in there for a certain reason and he explains the reason, then I'm good with that. And the same thing with me. I mean, a case in point is, we were, Ben and another script writer were working on the Spiral Mind movie script, and we'll get into that in a minute, later
oh
on. But
yeah,
that was a years long process, and we found this. Ben found this young guy,
No,
Jackson.
actually, he reached
Uh,
out to us.
oh, he reached out to you? Okay,
Yeah, and
yeah,
then
and
he
he
sent
wanted
us
to do
an
a comic
email.
book, right? What
That's
did he
Yeah,
want to
he
do
validation.
sent
first?
us,
Comic book or?
he was going to the Grinnell College of Literature, which is, I guess, it's a good school for
For
creative
writing?
writing.
Well,
Yeah,
Grinnell, yeah,
so
it's
he
it's,
sent
it's
me an
actually a
email.
really cool school. Period.
Yeah, he
It's
sent
a
me
good
an
school.
email. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He sent an email saying, "Hey, my senior project. I want to write a comic book. Could I write a comic book and you talk to my professor and give me credit?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." So he wrote a really good issue. It's called Stellar
Yeah,
Lumens, and it's complete.
it'll be
It's
coming
got
out.
that.
It'll be coming out soon.
Yeah,
This was
yeah,
5 years ago or 6 years ago, but it'll be
yeah.
coming out soon.
That's
So
awesome.
But
he wrote that.
and then it led to what we started
Well, then
looking at
later on,
writing a script.
when I was writing
Yeah,
the screenplay, which is a monster, he kind of reached out again. He says, "Hey, are you still writing that screenplay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm writing it." He had moved to Hollywood after he graduated and was working as a script reader, for
Oh,
guys
okay.
that read this. Yeah. So he said, "I
Yeah.
think I can do this." So yeah, if you want to do it, go for it. I'm not gonna tell you no if you want to do it. If it's horrible stuff, I'll just get rid of it. But he actually helped write about good
yeah,
70% of the screenplay. It is really tight, really good.
That's awesome.
He's brilliant.
Okay,
Oh,
so
now Matt
let's
can
let's
tell the
take
story about
that.
we talking about that.
Let's take that though.
and then
That in a microcosm. Okay, there you here
yeah,
you have. So your concept, and then 5 6 years later, your very first one. So you guys are working hard,
right,
reading, getting a background, and really getting your feet underneath you before you take the leap and get the first one out. And then all of a sudden
right,
you find yourselves in a situation where people are actually reaching out to you because they've read you, because they've been exposed to your passion, to your project. So explain to me, how does that feel, Ben, when you get that email and you're like, wait a minute, this is a fan. Like, we have a fan here. That kid
yeah.
he could have reached out to anybody, but he reached out to you guys. So how does that is that validation to you?
That feels awesome. That means it's not so much me, but that means they like Spiral Mind.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
And
exactly, exactly.
here's the thing,
Yeah,
Phil. We once we had something. I mean, we had that ash can that you saw that was, and really, we got to go back and give credit to Joaquin Silva, who was the artist that
Yeah,
came to our
the first.
rescue when we went from hey Ben, you should just turn this into a book because it's just cut to the chase. I'm like trying to make things easier. Hey, I'll edit your book. You write your book, I'll edit it. We'll get some images in there, whatever. Not a comic book. And he's like, no, it has to be a comic book. I said, okay. And then this is what we're gonna have to do. And we read those other books. We read emails. We read forums. Dave Sim, who not Dave Sim, the guy who did Cerebus.
Cerberus.
He had written a lot of stuff online about how to get into the kind, talking about what kind of drawing pen to use, or what kind of all this stuff. So we were devouring all that stuff. Plus, we
That's
said,
why it
okay, we're
took
not going to
from
reinvent the wheel.
2003 to 2009. That was
Yeah,
about
yeah,
six,
exactly.
seven
This is
years just
still in the development
learning the
stage.
comic book
Yeah,
world. Not just
mhm,
reading it, but learn how it works. Yeah.
yeah,
we were looking for printers and stuff, and so we said, okay, well, we're not going to reinvent the wheel. There's people here that have to have done comic books. All these people that were doing comic books, we couldn't find them or locate them. The web wasn't like it is now, where social media wasn't like it was. Let me just go back and talk about Joaquin real quick. He was an um, EMT that supported us at White Sands Missile Range when we worked with explosives. And somebody told me that, I was telling somebody about, yeah, my nephew and I are starting a comic book. We don't know any artists. Well, Joaquin's an artist. He draws some funny cartoons of these guys. So I talked to him and he showed me some of his work. I was like, I think I got our guy, you know? And so we'd get on the phone with Joaquin. He was right there with us, man. We would have these telecons from Benito's house, and what we called the war room. And that was a very creative place. There's like a little fireplace, books, library thing, kind
Oh,
of
remember
inventory.
that?
That's where a lot of ideas came from. Um, and and so we were talking to Joaquin. He was dropping these references. He was so in tune with what was going on with the comics. And remember, this is the early 2000s. The new Batman hadn't come out. The what's his name?
Blade had just come out.
The Nolan ones.
Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, those hadn't come out. The darker Batmans hadn't really come out yet. And Joaquin drew that ash can for us. And he had Spider-Man. We were saying, okay, let's have him like in training mode, like Spider-Man. So he's wearing a trench coat. He's got all these rudimentary gadgets on his headpiece here, like eye thing, telescopic thing, and all this.
Ben, your writing style has probably evolved. Matt, your skills have evolved throughout this whole process. The art has evolved. Spiral Mind has evolved from a look and everything. So, we go through this evolution as you go through these many years now. I mean, because you guys have been at it for about 20 now. I mean, Matt, you mentioned that your son's 20, and he was only in the crib when you were making soup that day. So we've been at this for a long time. How have you guys evolved as people? Let's set aside Spiral Mind for a second, okay? And I'll start with you, Ben. How have you evolved as a person overall because of this experience here? Because you got a 12 one day.
I guess the biggest thing I've learned is just don't take things for granted, and then you have to actually work. You just can't say, "Oh, I got an idea." Boom, it's going to materialize. You got to put the work in, and work for this endeavor. Spiral Mind. I can't talk about I don't want to talk about the other stuff, which is cool, but Spiral Mind's more cool. But for this, put the work in, including. I would send submissions out, and I would get a response and red ink all over it, and I would at first I was getting a little upset, a little insulted, but they say, "Hey, stop! Listen, it's not about you, Ben. It's about making Spiral Mind good." So I actually sat down. I actually read a lot of the responses, and a lot of the stuff like, "Hey, go read this book." Again, Joseph Campbell, Hero of a Thousand Faces. I never even heard of that book. So I went and bought the damn book, and I read the book. I said, okay, this is how you make a good story. This is how you build a hero. This is how you build a hero's universe. I did all that. I follow all that. So that just put the work in. That's all I can say. Really, I've learned how to just put the work in.
And things happen for a reason, and things go a certain way for a reason. So when we first started, the first book, The Rabbi's Lament, we had ultimately, Ben found the internet blew up. Benito found some artists on a website, an artist website, and somebody was interested in the story, and they drew it, and we worked out a deal. And it wasn't the Spawn dynamic stuff we were expecting, or the Batman style, Greg Capullo, Todd McFarlane stuff, but he did a complete book, and they were like, well, and the more we looked at it, the more we loved it. And they were like, okay, we just need to letter it. And we had this guy who was going to letter it. Nothing evolved from there. I was still studying what it takes to make a comic book, the Dave Sim ones. Mm-hmm. I keep saying Dave Sim, but it might be. But anyway, screw it. I'm gonna letter it. I'm gonna letter the book. We need to get this book out. It was dragging. It was taking a year or so. So I just read some stuff online. Just started lettering it. It took me forever. I tried to do everything perfect. I try to do it in Illustrator, all this stuff, and I'm not a creative in that way in any way. I'm good with computers, I'm good with this, but I used to do design stuff with Pro Engineer, stuff like that. But when it comes to designing letters or figuring it out, I didn't know. And there's only some resources online, and there's books in the Barnes and Noble, of course, in the library. But we did it. We put it out. We got it out. We got it done, and we're like, holy crap, we're done. And like you said earlier, you took it to a con. We took it to a Comic-Con. El Paso Comic-Con was the first one we went to, and the first one we've had in 10 years at that time. And the response was overwhelming. We did a panel about how we did comics. But just to fast forward real quick, so I just picked up this book a few months ago, comic book lettering. So I'm still trying to learn.
He's still learning. See, he hasn't
still learning, and you're still learning. But you could have written your own story on lettering as well, based off of your own experience. Right. But Matt, let me ask. Let's just say that. Let's go back to that day you're making soup. What if Ben never called you? What are you doing right now?
That's a good point. That's a good question. I've thought about that a lot, but not to the point where I'm like, what would I be doing? I thought about this scenario where I said, okay, that's a good idea, Ben. Let's go have a drink and talk about it, and then just blow it off. You know what I mean? I thought about that scenario because that's probably what would have likely have happened. I wouldn't have said no to him. I said, oh, let's go talk about it over beer. Yeah, sure. You
Yeah.
just fucking made me idea. Think of all the work we got to do. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And then remember that time we wanted to start a boy band? You wanted to start a boy band? I talked you out of it. So that's what I
Thank God for that.
It would have worked. It would have
Thank
been
God
awesome.
for that one.
So
Maybe
yeah,
that's your next
really,
story.
I don't know.
Maybe that's your next
Huh?
Spiral Mind comic. I mean, that's your alternate universe, right? And everyone's got
Oh
these
man, Spiral Mind
multiverses.
goes into the portal, becomes a rock star.
There you go.
I like
Yeah,
that.
I mean, now he's his alter ego and
We're doing
he,
a reading
Write that
toys.
down?
all that stuff.
We're doing a reading
Hey,
toys right
Phil,
now.
you want to
man.
write that? We'll give you credit
You,
as writer,
you can
huh?
take the idea right now and run with it. I'm giving it to you. You go
Yeah.
ahead. It's all good. This
A
is all
world-
being recorded. But
A world
but yeah,
without
I mean,
Spiral-Man.
I think that when we talk about it's fun to look back, right? It's fun to kind of what if, and hindsight is 2020, and you guys have learned along the way. You've probably tripped, as much as I've tripped so many times on my face. I tell my wife all the time, I've failed more than I've ever succeeded. But now let's talk about the future here, because as we kind of wind up, and we could talk all day, and this is like we said before, they're going to be the first of many, but let's end it there. Let's talk about where we want to go. Okay, so here we are. It's 2022. We've learned a lot. How many comics have we put out over the last 20 years now? What number are we on?
We were averaging about one a year since 2008, so we're about 9 or 10 right now. We got some that aren't lettered yet.
Uh-huh. And we've written a screenplay, and so we're kind of like in a really cool position to kind of springboard and really fast forward this. So what does it look like at, God forbid we don't go through other pandemics and things like that, but 2025, 2030, where are we? Where's Spiral Mind?
Some sort of revenue stream to keep the comic book going. We're still self-published, we're still independent, and we're still self-distributing. Right now, all of our books are available at Indie Planet. Just go to indieplanet.com, type in Spiral Mind. We have this phrase: always be pitching Spiral Mind, ABPS. I don't know if that acronym meant anything else, but we took it over on social media and everything with the hashtag. So it could mean something bad. I don't know. But we've been saying it since day one. Always be pitching Spiral Mind. So whether it's a hat or a stainless steel ring that we had made a while back, or the T-shirt, COVID mask, whatever, mug.
So let me throw this scenario your way, Ben. Okay.
Working on some koozies here. So
Let me throw this scenario at you right now. Since you were the one, you got the 12, you made the phone call. It's kind of your baby, and you shared that, and the passion. It's just, we've all known that it's grown, and here we are in 2022. You get a different phone call, guys. Okay, and that's from a big company. Let's just say it's like Marvel or DC. Just a big company, and they want to buy your stuff. They want to now own it. Okay, so all the work you've put into it, all the passion, all the learning, all of this stuff, all of a sudden they throw a number out at you, and they say, we want it now.
Up on my end here.
What's the play? You got it, but you're out now. You're out. It's ours now.
Yeah.
You guys are gone. We're going to move you to the side, and it's ours.
I can always tell Matt, it depends. It depends on what the number is, number one. Depends on if you're just totally just getting rid of us. You got to still keep us on as creators, right? And then I got to tell Matt, we'll just make something else. We got a lot of ideas of other stuff. We got Mexicans at Night. We got Bandolera. We got El Carnicero. What else we got, Matt? We got a lot of stories. We got the magazine, The Catalyst.
It's, what I kind of think about it like when a musical artist like Sting just sold his catalog for his solo stuff and the Police. And it was a crazy number, like $350 million to, I think it was Sony. I forgot, some big music outfit. And but yeah, that's it. They've got full creative control now. Now all of a sudden you see, you hear Walking on the Moon in a car commercial.
Yeah.
Right. And that's all you've ever wanted, by the way. That's all you've ever wanted. You've wanted Spiral Mind to be out there. But now it's here, but it's not with you anymore.
Well, eventually you gotta let your baby walk, right? Eventually he or she's gonna have to go on their own path. And I expect that one day with Spiral Mind. But it's okay though. It was a great ride. I'm enjoying it. And I'll say that when it does happen, it's going to. I'll say I enjoyed that too.
Area. And